Good afternoon, world. Sorry, Mara. Hope you guys enjoyed my show I made earlier this morning. I'm your genius, I know. Ivan, so you were a CFL commissioner. That's what you would do. Yes, that's what I would do. Obviously, but even if I was CFL commissioner, if you made that change, the league would never be like $1 billion league, but it'll probably grow to maybe a 350, 400 million, at least a $400 million league business, right? It'd be a more successful league. That's some Sarah. Okay, it's my phone for long, guys. All the CFL GMs. I'm your genius, I know. I guarantee a lot of CFL GMs and the committee, they disagree with me. I disagree with you, man. I don't think it'd really make a difference if we made the change. No, I disagree, man. I think that the league would grow if you just have Canadian players playing in the CFL. But you have to promote the Canadian brand a little bit, the Canadian talent a little bit. You have to obviously promote it. If you don't promote it, then you might not see, it'll grow a little, but if you want to see like exponential growth, you got to really promote the Canadian brand, the Canadian players. That's how you grow the brand. This phone is really pissing me off. Give me a second. Never going to happen, obviously, as the CFL needs to give the American athletes who did not get their NFL opportunity in the States to have their opportunity to shine up here, obviously. You guys understand? I'm just saying, if I was CFL commissioner, that's what I'd do. Obviously. That's what I'd do. If I was CFL commissioner, that's what I'd do, obviously. And the league would laugh me off. Ivan, you're crazy, man. You want to get rid of the American? You want to get rid of the American talent? Are you crazy, Ivan? The quality will go down a little bit. Yeah, it'll go down a little bit, but the value of your league will go up. So you have to sacrifice quality for value, or you sacrifice value for quality. It's up to you, obviously. So are you willing to have a little bit of better, higher quality football, but the value of your league is not great, or you increase the value of the league, but the quality of the league talent goes down a little bit, but at least your league is now more valuable. Obviously. Ivan, why is they're gonna ask me, Ivan, why is the CFO value not high right now? You want me to tell you the truth? Yeah, because you're giving the CFO brand is not really Canadian. It's not really the Canadian brand. It's not really Canadian talents. All these American rejects who are playing in CFL who no one really cares about. That's why your CFL brand has no value right now. The value of your league is not high right now because you're what you're doing, guys. Because you guys are blinded by the American players' talent, because they have a little of the edge over the Canadian players. Obviously, you think because they're putting on a little bit more of a show, you're increasing the value of the league. When in reality, you're not. Because even though they're putting on a show, the Canadian CFL brand is not growing because all these star players playing in the CFL are all these American reject players. They're American players who no one knows, no one really cares about. You know what I'm saying? The value of your brand is not really big right now because the Canadian fans in Canada can't relate to these guys. So when they come up here, they don't know who these guys are. Obviously, and they're also NFL rejects who no one really cares about. That's why the value your Canadian brand is not really valuable right now compared to the big four sport leagues. You guys what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you this question, CFL. So you really think because you guys are blinded by the American players' talent, obviously from the states, you guys actually think you're going to grow the league by having most of the star players be the American players, the rejects that no one in Canada really cares about. So you're telling me, CFL, your plan to grow the league is by promoting all the league with all American talent. So your plan to grow the Canadian Football League is by promoting the American talent in Canada. That's how you want to grow the CFL, and yet you guys have been doing that for years, and your league has very little growth. Why? Because you're what? You're limiting the best Canadian players in Canada the opportunity to shine, and you're giving all these American players the opportunity to shine over the Canadian players. And you think by promoting the American star players, you're promoting the CFL brand. When in reality, you're not. Because even though they're amazing players and they have the edge over the Canadian players, they're not Canadian. You know what I'm saying? Because you're blinded by their edge of talent over the Canadian players, you think because they're putting on a show and you're promoting all these American athletes in the CFL, you're actually promoting the Canadian Football League brand when you're not. Because all these Canadian people who watch the CFL, even though it's the Canadian Football League, all these star players, all these American players who they don't know about, they don't really care about them, and you think you're doing the CFL a service by promoting the Canadian Football League with the American players. When you know what I'm saying, you should be promoting the Canadian Football League with the Canadian players, the Canadian star athletes. Ivan, does the CFL promote some of the Canadian star athletes? Yes, they do, obviously, but because there's barely any star Canadian players in the CFL, you only have a few people here and there. And all the star players in the CFL, all the American guys. And the CFL, I watched the CFL for years. They tried their very best to promote the brand with all these American star players on the CFL promos and the commercials and everything. And they do all these documentaries about these guys never getting an NFL opportunity. And you notice how the fans don't really care about these guys, right? Because they don't know who they are. They're American players. They can't relate to them. They're NFL rejects. They don't see them as much valuable players compared to the Canadian players. Got some Sarah? Oh man, it's just a fucking dick, man. Well, you American players put us Canadian players down too, so they go get me deserve on him. So yeah. Yeah. Some Sarah? I guarantee you, all you NFL players are holy shit, man. That's a crazy story. Is it really that bad in the CFL? Oh yeah, like it's so bad in the CFL that the all the best players in Canada in the CFL, they who get drafted and everything are on-side draft free agents. They don't get an opportunity to even play to be stars up here. The CFL gives the opportunity to all the American players who are rejects from the NFL to play up here. And I know why, because the CFL, they're blinded. They're blinded by. They're blinded by. Okay, even though these American players are not as valuable to us because they're a bit more talented than the Canadian players, and they put on more of a show, we think we're doing the Canadian Football League a service by promoting the heck out of all these guys, and they put on a little bit more of a better show. But yeah, you guys are blinded by that. But like the truth is, even though these American players are a little bit better than the Canadian players, and they're putting on more of a show because they're American players playing in Canada, who the fans don't really care about, and NFL rejects, no one cares about them, and your league is not growing because you think you're doing the CFL service by promoting the Canadian Football League brand with all these American players who no one really cares about, no one knows about, and your league has no growth because you're promoting the Canadian Football League brand with all these American CFL stars who no one really cares about and who no one knows. But if you promote the Canadian Football League with the Canadian players, the star Canadian players, your league will grow. It will never be the NFL, but your league can grow in a good 10 years to a $400 million year revenue, man. I think at least $400 million. You can make an extra $150 million in revenue in a good maybe 7 8 years. Yeah, a couple years go by, the league is now doing 40 $50 million in revenue. Before you know it, 8 years go by, the league is now making $400 in revenue. The league's making more money, and you can increase the cap to $8 million for each team, and all the Canadian All-Star athletes can now make more money. A lot of money. They're not making the money the NFL players are making, but they're all making great money. They're making an amazing living with that money. From Sarah. And the Canadian players will guarantee to get bigger endorsement deals from the brands. Obviously. That's how you know the Canadian talent and the CFLs are worth more than the American talent. Yeah, these are Canadian players. Yes, I'm Sarah. And I'm hungry. I'm gonna get some food. Yeah. These are you're a genius, I know. I guarantee you, all you NFL athletes like, holy shit, Ivan, that's a crazy story. Is it really that bad in the CFL? Yeah, it is, guys. All you NFL athletes, you know what I'm saying? All you American football players who do not get your NFL opportunity, when you come up here, you'll see what I mean in the CFL. Um, you're not going to see many Canadian stars up here. Most of the stars are the American players in the CFL. Most teams have 7 Canadian stars. Some teams start maybe 8, 9 Canadian players, but most teams start 7 Canadian stars per team, obviously. But I told you, most of the star players in the CFL are O linemen. The Canadian players. Most of the starting players are the O linemen. That's how you know the league gives very limited opportunity for the Canadian players to shine. The reason why we do that because the American players are a bit better. That's why you got to get rid of those guys. Get rid of the American players. That's what I'll tell the committee. If you want to fix that problem, you have to get rid of the American players and give the Canadian star players in Canada, the best players in Canada, their opportunity to shine. You got to promote the Canadian homegrown talent in Canada, and your league will be more profitable. I think I can grow this league, guys, to a $400 million a year business, the CFL. It'll never be the NFL, but I can grow this thing to a $400 million um, a year revenue. Because right now the CFL is peaking at like $250 million a year in revenue. And the CFL is collecting, I think, I don't know, $50-60 million a year in TV broadcasting rights from TSN. So TSN is giving the CFL $60 million a year in TV rights, obviously. And I'm saying, and they're only peaking at like $250 million a year in revenue in the CFL. And it's been, yeah, obviously. Yeah. Ivan, we can fix this. We don't have to make this change. We can just find ways to market more the American players more. Okay, fine. I'm telling you now, man. Try market the heck out of all these American All-Star players and see if watch. You're not going to see any results because people in Canada cannot relate to these American lads. They don't even know who they are. They don't even know where they came from, and the truth is, guys. Even though the American players have the edge of the Canadian players, the CFL. The Canadians don't really respect these guys because they know they're rejects from the NFL. They don't really care about these guys. You guys see what I'm saying? Whereas the Canadians respect the Canadian football players more because they actually are the greatest players who ever played the game in Canada. You know what I'm saying? The American players who come up here, they may have the edge over us Canadian players in talent, but they're not as valuable as us because they're rejects from the NFL. They're a dime a dozen, and they're not the greatest players who played in America. The greatest players who played in America are all playing in the NFL, like Patrick Mahomes. Those are the greatest American players playing in America. Whereas the greatest players playing in Canada are the CFL draft picks, the all-star CIS players who got drafted in the CFL, as well as some of the undrafted. The draft picks in the CFL are actually the best players playing in Canada. Obviously, because I guarantee you, all the American players playing in the CFL, yeah, even like, fuck you, man. The reason why we're all stars in your league because we're a bit better than you guys. Yeah, you guys may be a bit better than us, but you're not as valuable up here, guys. Because you're rejects from the NFL, and these Canadian guys don't even know who you are when you come up here, and no one really cares about you guys. That's why the league is not growing. Obviously, whereas us Canadian athletes who are drafted in the CFL, like even though you guys have the edge over us, we actually are the greatest players who ever played the game up here, man. In college, like the CFL draft picks who get drafted in CFL are the best players playing in Canada, man. The greatest players, just like in the NFL, all the players who get drafted in the NFL are the greatest American college players. In the CFL, all the Canadian players who get drafted are the greatest Canadian players playing in the CFL. But because they have that stupid 7 starter ratio bullshit thing, and you know what I'm saying, and the CFL is bringing all these American guys from the States, and the American players have the edge of the Canadian players. These Canadian players don't really have the opportunity to shine up here. They give all these American rejects the opportunity to shine up here. You guys know what I'm saying? Is that fair? It's not fair, obviously, right? It's not fair. There you go. Tomorrow I have to go to the welfare office. I forgot to go today. I'll go tomorrow though. Tomorrow's my due. I have to go tomorrow. Yeah. Wednesday I work at Dinty's, right? I guarantee you, Glenn Stewart doing for live, man. You're a genius. Yeah, Ivan, you're right. Even though the American players have the edge over us Canadian players in talent, you know what I'm saying? What if you were a CFL commissioner? This might work, man. This might grow the league. Yeah, it would, man. It would work. The league will never beat the NFL, but it will grow. Like the CFL can grow to a $450 million revenue a year league, man. If you make this change. But the CFL taught me, Ivan, man, the quality will dip. Yeah, the quality will dip a little, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. And the coaches can push these players and have them train, and you'll get a performance with them on the field. And you guys are underestimating the quality of the Canadian talent, man. You think the American talent is so much more superior. No, Ivan, it's not that much superior, but they're better players than us, Ivan. Yes, they are, but they're not valuable up here, guys. No one cares about these NFL rejects, man. Nobody cares about these guys. They don't even know what these guys are when they come up here. No one cares about these guys. Like, guys, be honest, man. When you promote the heck out of all these American quarterbacks and running backs, do people in Canada really care about these guys? Not even they don't. Yeah, they don't. Not even they care about them. Well, if they really care about them, then how come there's no growth in your league? Why is there no growth in your league? That's what I'm saying. Why is there no growth in your league? You gotta keep that in mind, right? There's no growth in your league, right? Yeah. All the NFL asks, holy shit, man, that's a crazy story, man. Like, really, man, the CFL is really that biased. Oh, yeah. It's so bad that most of the CFL draft picks, they all quit and they retire, get drafted in CFL because they don't get an opportunity to really play up here. Because the league is biased towards the American talent, the American players who are rejects in the NFL. And they give these guys their time to shine up here. And I know why. The CFL's blinded. Why? They're blinded. The CFL's blinded by the American talent. They think because the American players have a little bit of an edge over Canadian talent, they put on more of a show. The league will generate more revenue and they can promote the brand better. But in reality, it's not true. Even though they're putting on more of a show, they're promoting the heck out of all these American all-star players, and yet no one in Canada cares about these guys. Because they're American players, they don't even know who they are, and they know all the Canadian players, all the Canadian people in Canada know all these American CFL All-Stars are all rejects from the NFL. That's why they don't really care about them. They don't really care about these guys because they're left over rejects from the NFL. You guys from Sarah? Yeah. They put on more of a show because they're a bit more talented Canadian players. But like, even though they're putting on more of a show and it's entertaining football, there's no growth in your league, guys. So Ivan, what's the key? You got to get rid of the American players. You have to get rid of them. And they laugh me off. Ivan, you're crazy. No, guys, do this and promote the Canadian brand, and the league will grow. I know I'm doing. You got to promote the Canadian brand, I'm sorry. Yeah. Ivan, how biased is the CFL? The CFL is so biased that for the awards, obviously they have an outstanding Canadian award for the best Canadian player in Canada. Whereas the MVP awards and all stuff, they all goes to the American players. But to give the CFL star players a chance to get an award, they have an outstanding Canadian award for the Canadian star players. Because that's how much the CFL downgrades the Canadian talent. It's embarrassing, man. Yeah. Will a Canadian player ever win MVP award in the CFL? No. That's why they have a separate the most outstanding Canadian award in the CFL. And that goes to like the best Canadian player in the CFL because the CFL thinks that the American players are superior and everything, and they treat the American players as, even though the Canadian players are more valuable, they treat the American players as like more superior players. They deserve to shine in this league and everything, and then they give them the opportunity to shine up here when yet your league's not growing and no one cares about these guys, man. You guys what I'm saying? I don't hate you guys. I'm saying, yeah. All the young players like, holy shit, man, I mean, that's cold. Yeah, guys. The CFL also biased towards the American players. A Canadian player will never win MVP in the CFL. It all goes to the star American players. But to give the best Canadian players in the league a chance to win an amazing award, they have a separate the most outstanding Canadian award. So if a CFL Canadian player is an amazing player, they win that award. That goes to the Canadian player, and then the star American players they get the other awards. Like, it's fucking bullshit, man. All the American players are, holy shit, I mean, that's cold. Yeah, man, that's the truth, man. And the truth is, most CFL draft picks in the CFL, they retire because they're sick of the bias and the bullshit in the CFL. Yeah, they're star athletes in CIS and NCAA. They get drafted, and most of them end up on special teams. In the practice roster, they get cut, they quit, and they retire. Obviously, chances are, if you're a first round pick in the CFL, you might have an amazing special teams career, but you're not going to really get your opportunity as a starter unless you're an O lineman. If you're a star O lineman in the CIS, you can get your opportunity to start in the CFL because most of the star Canadian CFL players in the CFL are O lineman guys in the CFL. They're O lineman, man. They give the Canadian players, the star Canadian players, very limited opportunity to play up here. And they give all these NFL rejects an opportunity to shine when they don't even want to be here, guys. All you GMs and coaches, I'm talking about. Even though the NFL players have the edges over the CFL, the Canadian players, a lot of these NFL rejects guys, this playing in the CFL was not their dream. Their dream was playing in the NFL. They don't really want to be there. They just happen to be there because they didn't get an NFL opportunity. Whereas the Canadian players like actually want to play football up here, whereas the American guys, a lot of them, this was not their dream. Their dream was to play in the NFL. Like, they have their NFL, we have our CFL. You guys what I'm saying? So how's that fair? I mean, it's not fair. Yeah, it's not fair. It's not fair at all. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, man. So I the CFL, yeah, the CFL does their very best to promote these American stars. They even do documentaries about these players. Yeah, like I saw many documentary play, not many documentaries. They do all these documentaries in the Grey Cup and everything about these star CFL players. They talk about how like they never had an NFL opportunity, they got cut, and like you know what I'm saying. And this GM and the CFL gave me an opportunity to play pro football. Amazing story, and they got to be stars out here. But you notice how no one really cares, man, because they don't know who these guys are. They can't relate to them. They're American players. They don't care who they are. And don't forget um, the people in Canada, obviously, when they see these CFL American CFL All Stars, even though they're stars in CFL, they know they're rejects from the NFL. That's why they don't really care about these guys. Guys from Sarah? Yeah, you got a point there. Yeah, I will tell the committee that. Yeah, but even though they're NFL rejects, they're talented, Ivan. They're a bit more talented than Canadian players. Yes, they are guys, but your league is not growing, and the fans don't really relate to them. They don't really care about these guys. You got to get rid of these guys, man. Get rid of the American talent. That's what I'll tell them, man. Yeah, and promote the Canadian homegrown talent in Canada, the football players in Canada. Promote that over the American talent that who nobody knows and up here and who they don't really care that much about. That's some Sarah Jameson, yeah. Why, when you watch documentaries, did you really care about the American players? No, I don't really care. It's an amazing story how, I don't know, this athlete played at NCAA, he got cut from the NFL, he got his shot in the CFL, he's a star up here, he's a legend up here. It's an amazing story, obviously, but because these guys are American, I don't know who these guys are, I don't relate to them. No one in Canada really cares about these guys. Like, you guys from Sayre? Why even they care? Well, if they really care, then why is your league not growing in the CFL? Your brand's not growing, guys, because you think you're doing the CFL a service by promoting the Canadian Football League with the American All Stars instead of promoting it with the Canadian All Stars. Obviously, why do CFL promote Canadian players? Yes, they do, but it's most of the guys they promote are all the American guys because there's not that many CFL starters in the CFL. There's a few here and there they promote, and the fans love the Canadian players, but most of the CFL star players are the American players. They're not the Canadian players. Some Sarah? Yeah, no, he was anyhow. Either your youngest brother really tell you, yeah, my youngest brother told me, he's like, yeah, even if the CFL was just Canadian players, the league would be more popular. It would be. It'd be a more popular league. It won't be the NFL and the NHL, but it'll be a more popular league. The CFL would grow to like maybe a $400 million year business, man. It'd be a bigger business. Maybe in 8 years, it grows to the league revenue goes up to $400 million in revenue. Because right now the CFL peaks at about $250 million in revenue around there. I heard 240, $250 million a year, 200 to $250 million a year in revenue. The CFL peaks at, obviously, and the CFL has been seeing very limited growth. Obviously, that's why a lot of CFL commissioners in CFL, a lot of them just give up and they quit because it's very tough to promote the brand up here. Yeah, because football's not popular in Canada. And I know why you have a tough time promoting the brand up here, guys, you CFL commissioners, because you're what? You're starting all these American stars over the Canadian stars, even though they're making the brand a little bit more better and it's more entertaining football. You know what I'm saying? Because they're American players and the Canadians can't really relate to these guys, no one really cares about them, they're NFL rejects. That's why your brand's not growing. That's the truth, right? That's what I'll tell the committee. You're a genius. I know I'm a genius, man. I'm a genius. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna go make some food. I'm fucking hungry. I eat all day. Hope you guys on the show. it's just my food. But I guarantee you, all you NFL players are wanting Ivan. Like, I don't get it, man. If the American players in the CFL are better players than the Canadian players, then shouldn't they be more valuable in Canada? No, they're not. Why, Ivan? I'll tell you. I told you my reason why. The reason why the American players playing in the CFL are not as valuable as the Canadian players, obviously, is because the first reason is because even though the American players playing in CFL are the first reason is because they're not Canadian, they're American players. So the Canadian players, they have a bias towards the Canadian players because this is Canada, this is their country, obviously, and they don't really care. They don't really care that much about American players. The second reason is that the Canadian players, the Canadian fans in the CFL, they know even though these American players have the edge over the Canadian players, they're NFL rejects. So they don't really respect them as much because they're leftovers rejects from the NFL, obviously. Whereas even though the Canadian players are not as talented as the American players, the American players are a little bit more talented. The Canadian players are actually the greatest players in Canada who ever played the game. So the Canadians see the Canadian players as more valuable to them than the American players. Because the American players, even though they have the edge over the Canadian players a little bit in talent, they're not the greatest players in America. They're leftover NFL rejects, obviously. That's why no one really cares about these guys. And in the CFL things they're doing, they think because they're a bit more talented, you know what I'm saying, they're going to make the league better. Yeah, you're making the league better in terms of the quality of talent by a little bit, but because these guys are NFL rejects and the Canadian fans only care about these guys, you're not growing the league, guys. You know what I'm saying? Because no one cares about these guys. Well, hey, guys, I'm saying, yeah. All the NFL players, that makes sense. Even though the American players who come to the CFL are a bit better than the Canadian players, because they're rejects from our league in the NFL, no, you Canadians don't really care about those guys. Yeah, that's why us Canadian players only care about you American guys who come here, because we know you guys are all NFL rejects who are not the best players in America, so we don't see you guys as valuable in the CFL. Whereas even though the Canadian players are not as talented as the American players are a bit more talented. You know what I'm saying? The CFL fans grew up watching a lot of these Canadian players, and these Canadian players who got drafted in the CFL are the greatest Canadian players in Canada. Just like the players who get drafted in the NFL are the greatest players in America. And that's why the Canadian players, and they're also Canadian, they have a bias, that's why the Canadian players are more valuable to the Canadian Football League if they're a star player. And that's why the fans in Canada see the Canadian players as more valuable to them than the American players. Does that make sense? All you NFL players, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you guys, I'm saying, you're a genius. I know, I'm a genius. I'm saying, yeah. I'm sorry. I guarantee you, Patrick Mahomes is shocked. Man, is it really that bad in the CFL? Oh yeah, Patrick, it's bad, man. There's a bias in the CFL with the American players. Yeah. Some sour. Yeah. Everyone's like, you're a genius. Oh, I'm a genius. I'll blow your mind away. When I go up to get my food, guys, I'm a genius, I'm saying. Yeah. I guarantee you, Sidney Crosby and Carl Bailey. Holy shit, I didn't know that. There's Sidney Crosby and Carl Bailey. Holy shit, there actually is a bias in the CFL. Yeah, there is, guys. There's a bias in CFL towards the Canadian players. Oh, that's not fair, Ivan. Yeah, it's not fair. Even though all you American players who come here have a bit of an edge over us, you're not as valuable up here, and the fans don't really care about you guys because you guys are all rejects from the NFL. That's why these Canadian, they promote the heck out of all these guys in the CFL, and the league's not growing because no one really cares about these guys. Yeah. They're arguing, but they're a bit more talented. Yes, guys, they may be a bit more talented, but the Canadian fans in Canada don't see these guys as valuable players because they're rejects from the NFL. They see the Canadian players as more valuable players because they actually are the best players in Canada. Get that through your head. They may be a bit more talented, but the Canadians in Canada love the Canadian players more because they can relate to them more, and they know a lot about these guys, obviously, and these Canadian players and Canada guys are actually the greatest players who ever played the game in Canada. Even though these American guys who play in the CFL who comp here have edge and talent, they're not the greatest players in America. The greatest players in America are all in the NFL. So why are you giving all these guys who are rejects in the NFL their opportunity to shine up here in the Canadian Football League when you can give the Canadian star athletes who are the best players in Canada their time to shine up here and you're illegal with more money? Why are you giving all these American players their time to shine? Because they're a bit more talented. Yes, they may be a bit more talented, but that's not the point, man. The point is they're not as valuable here, guys. These fans in Canada don't really care about these guys, man. They're rejects. They're rejects from the NFL. No one really cares about these guys, man. That's the truth. Don't hate me, guys. That's the truth, man. They don't care about these guys. If they're CFL stars, the fans love them, but even then, because they're American and they don't even know where these guys came from, nobody really cares. Guys from Sarah? Don't hate them, saying, yeah. And that's why your league has no growth. Oh, Hameson, yeah. 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 Why is Russ Jackson really more respected than Anthony Gavillo? Yes, he is. Russ Jackson is a Canadian CFL quarterback legend. He played for 8 years in the CFL in the 60s, I believe. He put up, 30,000 yards. He has, 1 or 2 Grey Cups. He put up 25 to 30,000 yards in 8 years in the CFL. But he only played for, 8 years in the CFL. He was a legend in the CFL. He played in the 60s. And the fans respect him even more than Anthony Gavillo. And Anthony Gavillo is considered the greatest CFL quarterback in the Canadian Football League. He put up almost 80,000 yards in the CFL. Obviously. And yet, Russ Jackson is more respected now than Gavillo. Why? Because Russ Jackson's Canadian. He's so respected, Russ Jackson. They have a trophy named after him in the CIS, the Russ Jackson Award, man. That's how you know the fans in Canada, they love the Canadian talent more than the American talent. That's just how it works, right? Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. Some Sarah. Even my younger stepbrother respects Russ Jackson. He's a guy, I respect Russ Jackson, man. He's fucking Canadian, man. He's a CFL legend. Everyone, all the football fans in Canada respect Russ Jackson, even more than Anthony Gavillo, because he's Canadian. And they have an award named after him for the CIS University in Canada, right? They have a Russ Jackson Award in the CIS named after Russ Jackson. That's how respect. You gotta be very respected to have an award named after you, man. They have an award in the CIS named after Russ Jackson, who's a CFL legend. And Matt Dunnigan, you know what I'm saying? He know. Yeah, I know Russ Jackson. Yeah, because Matt Dunnigan's a CFL legend, you know Russ Jackson, Matt Dunnigan, and he's even more respected than all you guys, all you American guys, because he's Canadian. Even though these guys put up more yards than him in the CFL, he's more respected because he's a Canadian, a Canadian legend. And the Canadian legends in the CFL are actually the greatest players who played the game in Canada, the greatest Canadian players in Canada. Whereas even though all these CFL legends, the American CFL legends are legends in CFL, they're legends and the fans respect them, obviously, but they don't respect them the way they respect the Canadian legends. Because all these guys, even though these guys are legends and they killed league up here, they're NFL rejects. Yeah, they're NFL rejects who didn't get their NFL opportunity, so it's they don't really care that much about these guys compared to the Canadian guys. Oh, guys, yeah, that's the truth, right? They don't really care about these guys that much. Yeah. Yeah. and that's why the league's not growing. Yeah. I think the CFL draft is a crapshoot. Like, it's not that popular. Yeah, CFL. The reason why your CFL draft's not popular is you don't promote it that well. You don't promote the Canadian brand that well. And the reason why the CFL doesn't really promote the Canadian draft because the CFL knows the CFL draft is a crapshoot. Chances are most of these first round picks are going to end up playing special teams the rest of their life, or they get cut and released, and all the starting spots go to the American players. That's why the fans don't really care that much about the draft because it's kind of bullshit and it's a crapshoot. All the NFL players are Ivan, holy shit, that's crazy. Yeah, the CFL draft, all you NFL guys, is a crapshoot up here because the Canadian player, the best players in Canada don't get their opportunity up here. They give all the opportunity to the American players, who are a bit better than them, obviously, in most cases, but like they're not as valuable up here. And guys, no one really cares about these guys. They're rejects. No one cares about them, and no one even knows who they are when they come up here. They're clueless. This guy played at this Arizona University. He got cut from the NFL. Yeah, that's cool. He got his NFL. He got a CFL opportunity when he got from the NFL. That's cool, amazing story. But no one cares because they can't rate these guys are American. They don't even know who they are. Like, guys from Sarah, they don't know who these guys are, man. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's a CFL American All-Star players kill the league. The fans know who they are. They do. Like, when I watched a documentary about all these players, I was familiar with them because I saw a couple of seasons of them. But even then, I can't really relate to them because I didn't see them play NCAA. You know what I'm saying? I didn't. You know what I'm saying? I don't know anything. I don't really know anything about these guys. You guys from Sarah, no one really cares about them that much. They care about them, but they don't really care that much about them compared to the Canadian players in the CFL. You guys from Sarah? Oh, hey, you guys been saying, yeah. Well, I'm gonna go get my food, guys. I'm hungry. My food's ready. guarantee even Dwayne Ford's man, you're a genius, I know. I guarantee even Dwayne Ford and all the Canadian players in CFL, yeah, Ivan, you're right, man. There's a bias, there's a bias in the CFL towards the American players. Because the league is blinded by the Americans' edge and talent over the Canadian players. They think because the American players are putting on a bit of more of a show in the CFL, they're actually growing the brand. But in reality, that's not the case. Even though the American players are putting on more of a show, guys, CFL and the CFL, the fans in Canada don't really relate to these guys. They don't know who they are. And, you know what I'm saying? They don't really care about them because they know they're rejects from the NFL. They don't care about these guys, man, that much. And that's why your brand is not, your CFL brand's not growing. That's the truth, right? Don't hate me, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sarah? Yeah. All right, you think there'll be a huge drop in quality if you made that change? A little bit of a drop, but not that big of it's not that big of a difference, right? Maybe a 5% drop in quality. Oh, I even like guys, like be honest, man. If I make this change, is there a huge drop in quality? It's not a huge drop, Ivan, but there'll be a drop. Yeah, there'll be maybe a 6% drop in quality, but the value of your brand, the Canadian Football League brand, will go up. So you have two choices, man. Either you have the league be a bit higher quality, but the value of your brand is not great because you're promoting the league with all the American stars, and it's not working. Or you promote the Canadian talent, the quality dips a little bit, but the value of your brand goes up. Those are two choices, right? Oh. All right, we'll see if we'll make that change. No, because two reasons. The CFL can't do that because they have to give the American players who never got an NFL opportunity a chance to play pro football, and the league is blinded by the American talent. Uh, yeah, we can't do that, man. Like the American players are the one. In other words, the CFL thinks it's because of the American talent in the CFL, the league is kept afloat. When I beg to differ. I think it's because I think no, the CFL believes that it's because of the American talent in the CFL and it's better quality football. The brand the league is surviving. But I think it's because of that, because most of the league's talent is the American players, your league is not growing. You have to get rid of the American players, guys. You have to get rid of them. Never gonna happen. But the reason why you see if your league's not growing, I think it's because of your bias towards the American talent playing up here, the CFL American star talent in the CFL. That's why your league's not growing, guys. Oh, I think we can fix it, man. We can promote the heck out of these American guys. Okay, fine. Promote the heck out of all these American guys and watch. You're not going to see much growth in your league because these people in Canada can't relate to these guys. They don't know who they are. They may be better players, but no one really cares about them. You know what I'm saying? They can't relate to them. That's what I'll tell the committee. They all laugh me off. Ivan, you're crazy, man. You want to get rid of the American talent? The quality will dip and all that stuff, right? That's what League would tell me, obviously, right? The quality will dip, Ivan. That's what League would tell me. Yeah, the quality will dip a little bit, but you're going to make more money, guys. Guaranteed. If you promote the Canadian brand. Sarah? So you guys have a choice, man. You either have to choose quality or you choose value. It's up to you. What is worth more to you? Is better quality and lesser value worth more to you? Lesser league value worth more to you, or is higher league value worth more to you but a lesser quality, little bit of different quality? What those are your two choices. I'm sorry, man. Quality is worth more to us than the value of the league. Okay, fine. Then I'm stepping down as commissioner. I don't want to. I can't grow a league, guys. Ivan, we can fix this, man. We're going to do whatever we can to promote these American guys. Okay, fine. Promote the heck out of all these American all-star guys and watch. You're not going to see growth in your league because the Canadian fans in Canada can't relate to these guys. They don't know who these guys are, man. They don't really care about them. The key is promoting the Canadian talents, not promoting the American talent. Because the CFL thinks they're growing the league by promoting the Canadian Football League with the American talent. The best talent, the best American talent in the CFL. They think they're growing the league by promoting the American talent. Nah, man, you grow the league by promoting the Canadian talent, not promoting the American talent. As this is a Canadian Football League, so why the fuck would you focus on growing the league with promoting the American talent in a Canadian Football League when you're going to grow the league more by promoting the Canadian homegrown talent in Canada, not the American talent, guys? It's the other way around. Yeah, but I think the American talent's a bit more talented. Yes, it is, but they're not as valuable up here, guys. The fans don't really care about these guys that much compared to the Canadian players, guys. I'm saying. They don't really care that much about these guys. I'm saying, yeah. I'm sorry. That's what I'll do if I'll see CFL commissioner. So, what about the GMs and coaches? No, the GMs and coaches doesn't matter. They can be American, Canadian. It doesn't matter. It's good to balance American GMs and coaches with the Canadian GMs and coaches in the CFL. As a CFL, there's a lot of Canadian coaches, there's a lot of American coaches coaching up here. It's good to balance that out, obviously. And the presence doesn't matter about that, obviously. But the players, I think, should be just Canadian players, the star Canadian players. Get rid of the American talent, guys. That's how you grow the league. Yeah, but Ivan, the quality will down. Look, man, like you're underestimating the Canadian talent. Obviously, Herb Brooks. All you guys who saw the movie Miracle, you know what I'm talking about, man. Herb Brooks told the Olympic Committee back in late 1970s. All you USA athletes who played back then, you guys don't talk about. Yeah, Ivan. Herb Brooks told the Olympic Committee, get rid of NHL players. I want college athletes, the best college athletes competing in the Olympics. And they laughed him off as crazy, and they won the whole gold medal round, man. So you guys may think I'm crazy now. You're underestimating the Canadian talent. You do this, the league's going to grow. It won't be the NFL, but you can grow this league to a $450 million a year businessman and boost your TV revenue rights for your league. Because the CFL is only getting, I don't know, $50 million a year for TV money. But you can grow that to $70 million a year in TV money. And you can grow the league to a $400 million a year business. Obviously, in a good maybe 8-9 years. And once the league makes that revenue by making this change, you can now renovate you can now have better facilities for the players. Obviously, you can better promote the Canadian. You have to keep promoting the Canadian brand, guys. That's how you get this thing done. you have to promote the homegrown Canadian talent. If you don't promote it, you got to promote a little bit. Yeah, we know you got to promote it, and you can increase the league salary cap to $8 million now per team. And now the star quarterbacks can make like $1.2 million a year salary. The receivers can make $600,000. I'm saying $5,000 a year. The defensive players can make $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. The good players can make their $150,000, $160,000 a year in the CFL. And the league is now a healthy league. And now the GMs and the coaches can make more money. And now the GMs and the coaches in the CFL don't have to worry about that bullshit 7 starting rule ratio in the CFL because you got rid of the American players. If you don't want to have the GMs and all these guys worry about that nonsense, that's why you have to get rid of the American talent, man. Get rid of those guys. That's how you fix the problem. Yeah. Sarah? That's how you fix the problem. That's what Sarah said, yeah. All right, will CFL ever make that change? No, they're not. Because if they do that, the CFL will see it as a risky move because they're scared of the dipping quality. Yeah, and the quality will dip a little bit. Yeah, it'll dip a little bit, obviously, but it won't make that much of a difference, obviously. And at the same time, they're going to tell me, Ivan, you got to give the American players an opportunity to play pro football up here, obviously. So, let me ask this question, guys. The NFL barely gives the Canadian players an opportunity to play pro football down south, and yet you're giving all these American players much bigger opportunities to play pro football up here in our league than the Canadian players. When this is not even their league, and they never want to be here in the first place. Is that fair? Like, why are you giving the American rejects a much bigger opportunity to shine up here when this is not even their league and the fans don't really care about these guys over the best Canadian players in Canada? Either because they're more talented. That's why you got to get rid of the American guys. This is why you got to get rid of the American players, because you have you're blinded by the edge and talent of the American players over the Canadian players. That's why you have your league bias in the CFL with the American players, who no one really cares about, right? Yeah. Sarah? That's true, man. I don't think it was in, yeah. I guarantee even Patrick Holmes not right. Holy shit, that's crazy, man. The CFL's really that biased. Yeah, guys. The CFL has a bias towards the American players. And all the CFL star athletes, Ivan, you're such a fucking, like, fuck you, Ivan. You know what I'm saying? Like, we deserve to play, to start over you Canadian players up here because we're better than you guys. Yeah, you guys may be better than us, but no one really cares about you guys up here. You know what I'm saying? And yeah. And us Canadian football athletes are more valuable to the Canadian people than you guys. And you guys know it. You know. Yeah. Because, guys, the American players may put on a bit more of a show in the CFL, but they don't have much value up here. They may be putting on a show in the CFL, but they don't really have much value up here. Because the fans don't really care about them, they don't know who they are, and they all know these guys are rejects from the NFL. They don't have much value up here, guys. You know it. The Canadian players may not be as good players as the American players. The American players are a little bit better, but they have much greater value, guys, for the Canadian game than the American guys. I mean, that's true. Yeah, the Canadian players have more value, Ivan, than the American players, but the American players are a bit better. I know they may be a bit better than they put on the show, but they're not that valuable up here, guys. No one really cares about them. Like, be honest, man. When you promote the heck out of all these all-star QBs and running backs, and you have all these documentaries about these guys who never got their NFL opportunity, you know what I'm saying? Amazing story. They got to be CFL legends and CFL all-stars. But do people in Canada really care about these guys? Do they even know who they are? They don't really care. Yeah, Ivan, they care. No, they don't, man. If they really cared about these guys, why is your league not growing? The CFL has been struggling for years with their growth. It's gotten better over the years, but it's struggling. The CFL is struggling to attract the fans in Canada because football's not popular in Canada, obviously. And I believe because they're what the CFL is trying their very best to promote the American talent in the CFL, and it's not working. You got to make some changes, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sarah? Wait for us, I have your right, man. I have your jeans. I know I'm a jeans. I'm saying, yeah. Yeah. Right. How can we improve the Canadian talent? You gotta have better off season training for the athletes, and have the American and Canadian coaches in the CFL really train the shit out of these guys and push them, and have the best QB coaches in America and Canada coach the shit out of the Canadian players. You'll have a very competitive league. It won't be as good. The quality will drop a little bit, but it won't drop that much. It doesn't really make that much of a difference, guys. Yes, there's a drop in quality, but the value of the Canadian Football League brand will go up because you're not promoting the homegrown Canadian talent, obviously. So you have to sacrifice value for quality, or sacrifice quality for value. It's up to you. I mean, I'd rather sacrifice value for quality. Okay, so you rather have a little bit more entertaining football, but the league's not really growing and making any money, than the league making a lot more money, and the quality level is it dropped a little bit. Like yeah, day it's about growing the league. It's not like, you know what I'm saying. I've man, we can't sacrifice the quality, man. We want this thing to almost be as good as the NFL. We need to keep the American players. Okay, you can do that, but I'm sorry, guys. If you do this, I can't grow your league because you know what I'm saying. What you're doing, guys, with the American star athletes in the CFL is not working in the CFL. As no one in Canada really knows who these guys are. They don't really care about these guys because they're rejects from the NFL. They don't really have much value up here compared to the Canadian guys. I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, that's why a lot of CFL draft picks they retire and they give up. A lot of CFL draft picks retire after they play for a couple of years. They call it quits because they're on the bench, they're on special teams. They don't get their opportunity to shine in the CFL. The CFL gives all these American guys opportunity to shine. Ivan, because they're better players, Ivan. They may be better players, but they don't have much value up here, guys. No one really cares about these guys. That's the truth. Yeah, man. They may be a bit better players, but no one up here cares about these American guys, man. They don't know who they are. And for as Ivan answer, yeah, no one in the CFL knows who these American guys are when they come up here. Yeah. And even when like they become star players and the fans and the league love them and everything, you know what I'm saying, because they're American players, the fans don't really care that much about them. You guys some Sarah, they only care about these guys because they're American. They're not Canadian players. Yeah, yeah. So Patrick Mahomes on Ray Ivan. So that's why you Canadians don't really value the American players who didn't make the NFL and the CFL. Yeah, the reason why I'm talking to you guys, the reason why us Canadian players don't really value all the American players who come up here who are NFL rejects is because they're American players. We don't know who they are, and we have a bias towards the Canadian players. And even though these American players have the edge over us up here in Canada, all the CFL, the Canadian people in Canada know these American players are rejects from the NFL, and they're not the best players in America. That's why we don't really have as much of respect for them compared to the Canadian players. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, The American players are not the best players in America. Whereas the players playing in Canada and the CFL are the greatest players in the best players in Canada. The American players playing in the CFL are not the best players in America. They're the rejects who are not good enough for the NFL, who didn't get their NFL opportunity. Hence why the CFL, the people in Canada, don't really see these guys really valuable up here because they're rejects. Oh, so yeah, they're rejects. They're Americans and they're rejects from the NFL. Oh, you're such a fucking dick, man. Well, you American players put us Canadian players down too. There you go, man. You got what you deserve. Oh, so yeah. Some Sarah. The CFL committee said, Ivan, we can make it work, man. Don't do this. This is a bad idea. We got to keep the American talent. If you want to have better quality product on the field. Obviously, they're going to tell me that. Well, we can find ways to promote these players, the American players. But okay, how do you want to promote these guys? All right, we can have them go to CIS university. Yeah, but even though you have these athletes go to CIS universities and they speak, the people in Canada don't know who these guys are. They don't really care about them. They don't know where they came from. They're American players. They know their NFL ranges. They don't really care about these guys. That's the truth, man. They don't care about these guys. They may be stars up here and they're amazing talent, but like the Canadians can't relate to these guys because they don't even know where they came from. They don't know who they are. Oh, if you got a good point there, yeah, man, you can promote the heck out of all these American guys in Canada, but people just don't care that much about them. They don't even know who these guys are. And all the Canadian fans in Canada know these guys are all NFL rejects, man. They don't really respect them as much as the Canadian players. That's the truth, yeah, that's true. But even though they're NFL rejects, and they, you know what I'm saying, they're a bit more talented. Yes, they are, but like no one in Canada cares about these guys, man. You guys see them saying? No, yeah, they don't really care about these guys. Yeah, some Sarah. Yeah. Why do the fans love the American CFL also? Yeah, they do. Obviously, if an American guy comes up here and he's a CFL star and they're CFL legends, the CFL fans will love that person, obviously. But because they're American players, they don't really they don't really know that much about them. They're just guys who came up here and they happened to kill the league. They love them, obviously. Oh my God, this guy is a CFL star. They love the guys, obviously. But they don't really care that much about them because they're American. They don't really know who they are. They can't really relate to them. They don't really care about them that much. The way they care about the Canadian players. Well, the Canadian players, if they're star players, the fans love them a lot more in the CFL because they're Canadian and they have a bias, obviously, and they can relate to them more. A lot of these CFL fans know these guys who play university in Canada, obviously, and they know these great Canadian players playing in the CFL are the greatest Canadian players up in Canada. Whereas even though they love the American players or stars up here, they know these guys are rejects from the NFL. That's why they don't see them as valuable as valuable up here. They're very valuable to the fans, obviously, but they don't see them as valuable up here because they know they're rejects from the NFL. You guys see what I'm saying? Hi, Jose Alvarado. That's a good point. You're a geez. I don't know, geez. I'm saying I don't blow your mind over. Geez, obviously, yeah. Some Sarah. Ivan, which CFL QB legend do you respect the most? Russ Jackson. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I respect guys like Ricky Ray, Alvin Garwilo, Matt Dunnigan. I respect those guys who are legends in the CFL. I respect Russ Jackson more because Russ Jackson is Canadian. I respect him more. It's just a bias I have. I respect Russ Jackson more. Even my younger stepbrother respects Russ Jackson more than these American guys. He even told me, "Yo, Ivan, Russ Jackson's a legend, man. He's fucking Canadian. He got the kill league up here." I fucking respect Russ Jackson more than all these CFL legends who play up here. Obviously, yeah. Because Russ Jackson, he's a CFL legend, and he what? When he played in the CFL at the time, he was what? He was what? He was part of the best players in Canada who played up here. The best players who in Canada played up here. Whereas all these other CFL legends, American guys who are legends, obviously, they're the best players who play up here in the CFL, but they're rejects, and they're not the greatest players who ever played in America. They're rejects from the NFL. That's why the Canadian players the Canadian fans up here, they don't respect the American legends as much as the Canadian legends because of that, right? Like, because they're American and they don't really relate to them, and they have their Canadian bias, and they know even though these guys are legends and they respect them, obviously, they're legends and they played in the CFL, obviously, but they're NFL rejects who came up here. They don't really care that much about them compared to the Canadian players. Okay, guys, yeah, I'm just a fucking dick, man. Well, you American players put us Canadian players down too. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. Why is Russ Jackson more respected than Warren Moon? Yes. Yes, man. In Canada, Russ Jackson is even more respected than Warren Moon because he's Canadian. And Warren Moon's an NFL legend in the NFL. He's also a CFL legend because Warren Moon was also an NFL reject. He killed the league up here, but the Canadians even respect Russ Jackson more than Warren Moon because he's Canadian. That's just how it works, right? You got the bias, right? Yeah, obviously. As they have a trophy guys named after him in the CIS. Like, you have to be very, very respected as a player to have a trophy named after you. He has his own. Russ Jackson has his own award trophy named after him in the CIS, the College Football Man. They have the Russ Jackson Award, man. That's how you know the Canadian fans love Russ Jackson the most. Russ Jackson is like the most respected QB in CFL history because he's Canadian. They have a trophy named after him in the CIS. There's no trophy named after Anthony Galvillo and Matt Dunnigan. No, because they're American players, and the fans love them and they respect them. They're CFL legends. I respect those guys. They're CFL legends because they're Americans. You know what I'm saying, the fans don't care that much about them compared to the Canadian legend Russ Jackson. I'm sorry. Yeah. And that's why the CFL Hall of Fame is not that popular in Canada, obviously, because most of the CFL Hall of Fame players who played in the CFL are all these American guys who came from the States who no one really knows and they don't really relate to them that much. That's why no one really cares about the CFL Hall of Fame up in Canada. That's a lie. They care about the CFL Hall of Fame in Canada. It's not the way the Americans care about the NFL Hall of Fame in the States, right? The CFL Hall of Fame is not that popular compared to the NFL Hall of Fame up in Canada because most of the Hall of Famers who played in the CFL obviously are all these American guys who came up here who no one even knows, man. They just came up here, and a lot of the Canadians are clueless about these guys because they can't relate to them. They're all American guys who are NFL rejects. I'm saying, yeah. They can't really relate to them. You guys, I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, is the CFL more fun football than the NFL? Um, it's more fun. The CFL is a bit more fun football than the NFL. It's more of a passing league, but because the NFL is better quality, it's more entertaining football than the NFL. The CFL, but the CFL is is a more like fun experience because it's a hardcore passing league. Because the NFL is a bit better quality, the NFL is obviously the more entertaining football. There's a reason why the NFL is more popular than the CFL, right? But don't forget the football is not popular up here in Canada compared to the way it is in the States, right? Yeah. I we can't do that, man. We have to give the American players an opportunity to play pro football. But guys, man, like think critically here, man. The NFL does not give the Canadian players an opportunity to play football in the States. So why are you giving all these American guys an opportunity to play for pro football up here? Obviously, when their dream is to play in the NFL and they don't really want to be here, when you can give the Canadian players an opportunity to play pro football up here, when they're more valuable up here and the fans love them more, like, oh, does that make sense, guys, business wise? Yeah, right. We have to give them opportunity. Guys, there's the Arena Football League, the XFL. They can play there. They don't make the NFL. They can play there. This is our league, guys. The NFL doesn't barely gives any Canadian players in Canada an opportunity to play there. They're biased, so we have the right to be biased towards the American players too. This is our league. This should be a Canadian league, obviously. As there's very few Canadian players, maybe I don't know 6, 7 Canadian players playing in the NFL, and most of them end up on a practice roster. The NFL doesn't give the Canadian athletes an opportunity to play football there. So why should we give all these American guys an opportunity to play pro football up here? Like, how's that fair? You got some Sarah? Yeah. Well, Ivan, the American players deserve the spotlight in our league, Ivan, because they make the league better. No, they don't. Obviously, by making the league better, what do you mean? Do you mean in quality? Yeah, in quality, they're making the league a little bit better. They put on more of a show. But in terms of revenue and endorsement deals and sponsorship, they're not making the league better because these Canadian brands on stuff, it's very tough for them to promote these American guys because no one in Canada cares about them. They don't know who they are. It's very tough to promote these guys, right? That's one reason why the CFL struggles getting big sponsorship deals. Because all these Canadian brands in the CFL, they can't really sponsor these guys, these CFL stars, because no one in Canada knows who they are. It's very tough to sponsor these American guys who nobody knows. You guys see what I'm saying? It's very tough to sponsor these guys, man. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm saying, yeah. Guys from Sarah? Obviously, that's why the CFL they don't get that much big sponsorships in the league because the Canadian sponsors brands in Canada, like yeah, like we want to sponsor the CFL, but like all the stars in the CFL are all these American guys who no one in Canada really knows or who really cares about. It's very tough to promote this thing and sponsor these guys, these American guys who nobody knows. Yeah, man. Oh, we can promote them. We can have them speak at universities and everything. Yeah, you can have them speak at universities and everything. and a lot of people recognize these guys, the American athletes, because they're American. The Canadian players only relate to them. They don't really care about them. That's the truth, right? Don't hate them saying, yeah, they don't really care about these guys. Yeah, because they're American, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. It's not fair to the American players. Okay, guys, let me ask you this question. Be honest, man. All the best American players who play in America end up in the NFL, obviously, and then all the best players in Canada who get drafted in the CFL, they end up in the CFL, but those guys don't get the opportunity. You're giving all these rejects in the in from the NFL who come up here, they're able to shine up here in our league. When this was never the dream to begin with. Like, does that make any sense, guys? Is that fair? But I think they're a bit more talented. Yeah, but guys, they're American players who are rejects from the NFL who come up here who no one knows and no one really cares about. Like, you guys see what I'm saying? Why are you giving these guys an opportunity to shine over the Canadian players when no one in Canada really cares about these guys like that much? I think the fans love them. Yes, they love them, but at the end of the day, man, they don't really care that much about these guys because they're American. They can't relate to them. You know what I'm saying? They don't really care about these guys that much. Even the fans love them. Yes, the fans love them, but they don't love them the way they love the Canadian players. They don't love the American players the way they love the Canadian players in Canada, right? For football, right? Yeah, that's the truth, right? Everyone's but you're right. Yeah, Dwayne Ford, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Yeah, it's true, son. Yeah. Never gonna happen though. CFL will never make that change, obviously. While the CFL will never make that change, I told you because the CFL has to give the American players who didn't get an NFL opportunity a chance to play football up here, even though they have the arena football in the XFL in the States, obviously. Obviously, yeah. Like, I just don't, you know what I'm saying? And the second reason, obviously, the CFL is blinded by the American athletes' talent. They think because the American players have the edge over the Canadian players, and they put on more of a show, they're making the quality of the CFL game better. Obviously, which is true. They're making it a little bit better, but you know what I'm saying. But even though they're making the league a little bit better in talent and in quality, like, fans in Canada, guys, are not resonating with these American star athletes. That's the truth, because they can't relate to them. They don't know who these guys are. They don't really care that much about them because they didn't see these guys play in the NCAA. They can't relate to them. They're not Canadian players. And that's why our league is not growing. Yeah. The Canadians don't really resonate well with the American players that much in Canada because they don't know. They're unknowns. They don't know who these guys are. Are some Sarah? I hear Jesus. I know. I don't blow your mind away. So all the NFL obviously Ivan. So yeah, that makes sense. The American rejects who did not get an NFL opportunity to come to the CFL, they're not as valuable. Yeah, they're not as valuable up here, obviously, because they're American and the Canadians love their Canadian players more. And you know what I'm saying, and don't forget, the Canadian players who get drafted in the CFL are actually the best players in Canada. Was even though the American players who come here in the CFL or have the edge over the Canadian players in talent, they're not the best players in America. The best players in America are the ones who are in the NFL. They're the leftover rejects who are not good enough for the NFL or did not get their NFL opportunity. So, Sarah. And that's why the Canadian fans, even though they love the American CFL stars, they don't really care that much about them because they're American and they can't relate to them because they're not Canadian. And they know all these guys are all rejects from the NFL. That's why they don't really care that much about these guys. I have to tell the community that, Ivan, that's true. Even though the fans don't really care that much, not even they care about them. Yeah, they care about them, but they don't care about them the way they care about the Canadian players, guys. The Canadian players are more valuable up here than the American players. That's the truth, right? Come on. That's the truth, right? Yeah. Obviously. Yeah, you guys have to make a choice, man. You have to either you choose quality over league value, or you choose league value over quality. Those are your two choices. Obviously, you have to either sacrifice quality for league value, or you sacrifice league value for quality. So you have to make a choice. Ivan, we're gonna choose quality over league value. Yeah, it's a bit more entertaining football, but like, are you really willing to have a bit more entertaining football with the American players that no one really cares about in the CFL, but the league has less value? Or would you rather boost the value of the league by having the Canadian star athletes play in the league, but the quality dips a little bit? Like, that's a win, man. Even though the quality dips a little bit, the league is now making more money, so you have to make that choice, right? You have your dilemma. Yeah, why we want to compete with the NFL, guys? You can't compete with the NFL. You're never going to be the NFL. Stop trying to be the NFL. You're never going to be the NFL. The NFL is a much more successful league than this league. But if you want to grow this league, that's how you grow the league. Ivan, I don't think we can't grow the league this way. I believe the best way to grow the league is by promoting the American talent. Nah, man, I disagree. You've been trying your best for years, guys, to promote the league with the American talent in the States, obviously, and the league has had very little growth, man. Success, right? So I think that kind of answers your question. Williamson, yeah. 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 Yeah, we got to make a choice. Either we choose quality, either we choose quality over league value, or we choose league value over quality. Yeah, those are the two choices you got to make. Either you choose quality over league value, or you choose value over quality. Those are your two choices. Ivan, I'm choosing quality. Okay, if you want to choose quality and keep the American players, I'm not. I'm stepping down as commissioner. I'm not gonna grow. I will not be able to grow this league, guys. I'm sorry. I can't think of any other way to grow the league. This is how you grow the league. I disagree. I think the league will make less money. No, it won't. It will make more money, guys, if we do this. I know I'm doing, but you have to promote the homegrown talent, the Canadian talent. You have to promote a little bit. You know. Yeah, because there's also a lot of amazing CIS quarterbacks. who never got there. Like nowadays, the CFL gives Canadian quarterbacks a little bit more opportunity, as Nathan Rourke is a starting quarterback, and Trey Ford had his opportunity, obviously. But even then, the CFL also has a bias towards CFL quarterbacks too. There's a lot of amazing CFL quarterbacks who played in the CFL who don't get their CFL opportunity because the CFL has a bias also towards, especially the quarterbacks. The CFL has a huge bias towards the American quarterbacks in the States because I told you the American quarterbacks are a little bit better than the Canadian quarterbacks in the CFL. That's true. They are a bit more talented, but like you guys are promoting the heck out of all these guys in your league. You're not seeing any growth in your league because the fans don't really care that much about these guys. They don't really know anything about these guys. They're American. They can't really relate to them. They don't really care about them. They care more about the Canadian talent. That's why you got to make a choice, man. You got to choose quality over league value, or league value over quality. Those are your two choices, obviously. Yeah. Or in a better way to put it, you got to choose money. Either you choose making more money, and you have to choose either money or you choose quality. The league is better as a bit better quality, but you're not making as much money, or you make more money and you don't. The league is not as good in quality. It dips a little bit, but the league is now more valuable and the league's making more money. So those are your two choices. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. All the advertisers, holy shit, that's a crazy story. I even do the CFL draft picks in Canada. They do a lot of them really quit. Oh yeah, a lot of CFL athletes who get drafted in the CFL, they retire and they call it quits because there's a bias in the CFL towards the American players. All the American players are the stars, and they're all starting in the CFL. Only 7 Canadian players in each team start. And don't forget, guys, all you American guys, most of the starting positions in the CFL for the Canadian players are the O linemen, man. Yeah, they'll start maybe 4 Canadian O linemen and maybe 1 Canadian receiver, 1 Canadian D line, and maybe 1 Canadian corner, and that's it. And the rest of the players are all the American guys. Ivan's because they're a bit more talented. That's why you got to get rid of them guys. You don't want to deal with that nonsense racial thing. You have to get rid of the American players if you want to fix the problem, obviously. And if you want the fans in Canada to be more interested in your draft and actually take it seriously and care more about your draft guys, Ivan, they care. Oh my guys, the fans don't care about your draft because they know your whole draft is bullshit. It's a crapshoot, and all you CFL GMs and coaches don't talk about. Yeah, it's a crapshoot. Yeah, the CFL draft is a crapshoot. Of all the 63 players that get drafted, maybe you'll be lucky to get 10 players who start in the CFL, and the rest of them end up on special teams or they get released. You know what I'm saying? Or they end up on the practice roster. Because the majority of the starting players are the American players who come up from the States. So it's a bit deceptive, the draft. All the African players are, holy shit, that's crazy, I know. Even first round picks, yeah, guys, even first round picks in the CFL, most of them have a career in special teams, but they don't get their opportunity to play up here because the league has a bias and they give the opportunity to all the American players. That's how it works, right, in the CFL. Yeah, man. That's how it works, right? Yeah. Do some first round picks, Ivan, in the CFL have amazing careers? Yes, obviously. Enoch Mwamba was a first overall pick. He was a starting linebacker in the CFL. There's quite a bit of first round picks in the CFL who have amazing careers and they're starters. That's very rare. Chances are, even if the guy's a first overall pick, chances are that player will be a special teams player, or he might be a like a fill-in player They'll give him a couple reps here and there every game, but like the American players get the majority of the reps. That's how it works in the CFL. And most of the starting Canadian star players in the CFL, all you American players, I'm saying, who are shocked, obviously, are all linemen in the CFL. Those are the majority of the Canadian starters. That's how sad it is, and the Canadian players have very limited opportunity in the CFL. That's the truth, right? They give the opportunity to the American players up here in Canada to play full. So you're willing to give the American players in the States more of an opportunity to play pro football up here than the Canadian players when this is not even their league, guys. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a slap in the face, right? Yeah. Yeah, but Ivan, man, like, you know what I'm saying? They're a bit better players. Yeah, they may be better. They may be a bit better players, guys. But this is a Canadian football league, man. The fans love the Canadian players more than the American players. So, and the NFL doesn't give the Canadian players up in Canada an opportunity to play pro football down south. So why are you giving all these American guys like a much more of an opportunity to shine up here when the Canadian players are the ones who deserve to shine up here, not the American players? The Canadian players are the ones who deserve to shine up here, not the American players. That's the truth, right? Don't hate me. Yeah. 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 So I'm talking to all you CIS athletes who are playing in college football in Canada, man, who have that dream of being a pro football athlete in Canada, man. Good luck. And you may get drafted and you're excited, man. Chances are you're going to end up on special teams in the CFL. The CFL has a bias, guys, towards the American players. That's the truth, man. As my older stepbrother told me that. He told me how he told me stuff that happened behind the scenes. The CFL, they just love all the American guys, and they get to start in the Canadian Football League, and all these draft picks, even second round draft picks, third round draft picks, they all end up on special teams. That's why a lot of CFL draft picks they quit because they can't take the bullshit, man. Yeah, this is bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to be a star athlete in the CIS. I got drafted in the CFL. I don't know, a 6th round pick in the first round, and I'm a fucking special teams player. Well, like, this is bullshit, man. And all these American guys are starting, and we're all sitting on the bench. Obviously. That's why a lot of CFL players, they call it quits. Obviously. In the CFL. All the Canadian players, they call it quits after a few years because they can't take the bias, obviously. So I'm talking to all you CIS athletes. I don't want to put you down. All you CIS athletes who kill the CIS and you get your CFL opportunity, you know what I'm saying? You get drafted in the CFL, you may be excited when you get that call by the GM and everything, but watch, man, you're going to go to training camp. You know what I'm saying? You're a first overall pick, second overall pick. Chances are you'll be lucky you'll probably end up on, if you're a defensive player, you know what I'm saying, you're going to end up on special teams. Or you might get some reps here and there a couple times during a game. They might give you a few reps here and there, but they're going to give the majority of the reps to the American guys, the American star players in the CFL. That's the truth to all you CIS players. As my older stepbrother told me stories about that when he played for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He told me there's a bias, Ivan, towards the American players. He told me that, man. Yeah, man. Yeah. Yo, Ivan, they treat the CFL treats the American stars like gods. Yeah, they do. Like, don't forget me wrong. Like, if the guy's a Canadian star in the CFL treats them better, obviously. But because the majority of the players are American stars, athletes, the CFL treats all these American guys who are rejects like gods because they're such amazing athletes up here. You know what I'm saying? And they think they're growing the league by doing this, but they're not growing the league by doing this. Like, they may be a bit more talented guys, but they're American players and they're NFL rejects. No one cares about these guys that much in Canada, man. That's the truth. Don't hate me, yeah. No one really cares about these guys. That's the truth, right? Yeah. That's why a lot of CFL draft picks, they retire and they quit. Yeah, because they don't get the opportunity to play pro football up here. Well, they get to play up here, but like they're I don't know, they're special team players, special team stars, and all the star players are all the American guys, man. They're the ones who are shining up here in the CFL. Obviously, right? Why? Because we're bearing you. Yeah, you guys may be bearing us, man, but you're not as valuable up here as us Canadian guys. And no one really cares that much about you guys compared to the Canadian players. That's the truth. Don't hate us, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. All the NFL guys are holy shit. And that's a crazy story, man. So even the best Canadian athletes in the CF in Canada who play college, most of them don't get. Yeah, most of these Canadian players, guys, don't even get an opportunity to play to really shine up here. They give the opportunity to all the American guys from the states. Sad, huh? Yeah, yeah, and that's why your CFL draft is not that popular because the whole thing is bullshit. It's a crapshoot. Chances are a lot of these first round picks are going to end up on special teams. They might get a few reps here and there, but like they're gonna, yeah, Ivan, we're gonna give the GMs and coaches are gonna give the American players their time to shine in the league, and they limit the opportunity for the Canadian players. Ivan, they're a bit more talented. That's why you have to get rid of them. Get rid of the American talent. That's what I'll tell the committee. They will laugh me off. Ivan, you're crazy, man. Look, man, like the committee for the Olympics laughed Herb Brooks off when he told them get rid of all the NHL athletes. I want college athletes. He laughed him off and he pulled it off. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm doing. I think if you do this, this league will grow. This league will grow. So I'm saying, yeah. So the CFL players, they look down on Canadian players. Yeah, of course they do, because they're the stars of the league, and they're like all the American guys are all the stars of the CFL league, obviously, and all these Canadian draft picks, um, are special team players and like third strings, whatever it is. They see these Canadian players kind of as a joke, right? In a way, a little bit. Not as a joke, but they look down on them a little bit. Yeah, all these CFL players got drafted and like they're all like playing special teams. That's why, guys, CFL, all these Canadian people who watch your CFL, they can't take your league seriously because like you promote the heck out of all these. You promote these CIS stars. This guy got drafted and everything. He's a first overall pick. Congratulations! And then like none of these guys are even playing starting the CFL. They're all special teams players. They all get cut, and all the star players are all these American guys who are undrafted NFL free agents. Like, you know what I'm saying, or who are NFL cuts. And that's why, guys, it's very tough for the Canadians in the CF in Canada to take your league seriously, man. They can't take your CFL league seriously. You know what I'm saying? They can't take it seriously, right? Yeah, they can't take your draft seriously because of what you're doing, right? The CFL's not even, fuck you, man. You're such a fucking dick, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Look, man, like, I'm just saying, guys, man, the reason why the fans don't really care about your CFL draft because they know the whole thing is bullshit. It's a crapshoot. They know most of these athletes who are going to get drafted in the CIS. are not going to be starting CFL stars. They're going to end up on the practice roster. They get released, or they're special team players. You're going to give all the spotlight to all the American players. That's the truth, right? Yeah, Ivan, that's the truth. Yes, that's why the fans don't take your CFL draft seriously, and you don't have much viewership. You know what I'm saying? Before I just caviar, yo, Ivan, give me one reason why we should get rid of the American talent. I'm gonna say this again. When you promote the heck out of all these all-star CFL American quarterbacks, running backs, and then corners, linebackers, and you have all these documentaries about them, how they talk about how they never had their NFL opportunity. You know what I'm saying? That's an amazing story, how you know what I'm saying? They didn't get an NFL opportunity and they got to be stars up here. Amazing, beautiful story. But do the fans, the people in Canada really care that much about these guys? They don't really care because they're American and they can't really relate to them. No one really cares. Obviously. And don't forget, they know these American guys are NFL rejects, as they say that in the documentary. Yeah, I got cut from the NFL. I didn't get my opportunity, and this GM gave me an opportunity to play pro football up here. It's an amazing story, but the fans don't really care about these guys. That's the truth, right? Because they know they're American. They can't relate to them. They know they're all NFL rejects. Obviously. So you really want to promote the CFL what? The CFL Canadian brand with the American NFL rejects over the best players in Canada. So you're wanting to choose to have the NFL rejects in America, you know what I'm saying, to be the stars in the CFL, and you want to promote the brand with those guys over the greatest Canadian players playing in Canada, who the fans love more and who are more valuable. Does that make sense business-wise, guys? Either they're a bit more talented. Yes, they're a bit more talented, but they're not as valuable guys, and you know it. The American talent from the States playing in CFL are not as valuable as the Canadian talent. And you CFL, you know what I'm talking about. You know that's true, Ivan. It's true. But it's a huge risk. We're never going to do that, Ivan. We have to give the American players an opportunity. Obviously. Yeah. That's quite sad. I guarantee all you NFL players are going like, holy shit, that's a crazy story. I know it's crazy, man. That's the truth, man. That's crazy, man. That's sad, man. Even though us American players are burning you Canadian players, that's sad, Ivan, man. It's too bad that's going on in the Canada. Yeah, it's the truth, guys. That's what's going on in the CFL. The CFL is a bias towards the American players. That's the truth, but hence why a lot of these draft picks they quit and they retire. Obviously in the CFL because of the bias, obviously, right? They can't take the bias. This is bullshit. Like, playing pro football is not fun. Even though my dream was playing pro football in Canada, it's not fun playing up here. I'm a special teams player, and I'm saying I quit. I retire, and that's why they all retire, guys. And you know what I'm saying? You guys are losing a lot of your Canadian talent because of your bias towards the American players. Yeah. So, Sire. Anyways, guys, it was very. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Stay tuned. I'll make a video probably tomorrow. So I'm out. Peace. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Peace out, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the show.